Fitness Pro Mentor community, welcome to another episode of the Fitness Pro Mentors podcast. And as you know, I love helping personal trainers like you 2 to 3x your in-person practice. Honestly, as a one-on-one trainer, you can make some incredible changes with people using incredible systems, and you could even open up your own gym and studio. But there are some people who have done that, and they go on to the next step, the next level, a level that I can't even imagine. And I'd like to introduce someone who's gone to another level, Mr. ISOPHIT, Mr. Isometric, Mr. Brad Thorpe. How you doing today, sir?
I'm excited. I'm on your show again. This is fantastic.
Again. Well, man, you are making some ISO waves, and we need to talk about what are you doing to make the world shake non-movement.
I know, right? It's so crazy because like every time we talk, there's been like monumental transitions or shifts or pivots in my life to I guess at the end of the day warrant me being back on the show. So, thank you as always for the support, the love, so I do appreciate that, and I hope everyone else today gets something out of our conversation, because since we spoke, and the title of your show is like, how do we sort of pivot into the world of professional sports? Wow. It's surreal. That's how my life is right now. It's the days blend, the opportunities magnify each day. It's no longer me chasing. It's professional sports teams calling, and you would have seen this last week. Highlight moment of my life. I feel validated. I feel as though I finally arrived after a 14-year journey. We were sidelines at the NBA. Opening game for the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And they were using ISOPHIT during a courtside during the warm-up for, an NBA game. I'm still overwhelmed, shocked, full of gratitude for literally everyone that supported this journey along the way. Now, since that moment, I've had three Major League Baseball teams reach out, 4 U.S. Division I college basketball programs, a national soccer team, a national rugby team, a national cricket team, and a bunch of other people. So it's been, for lack of a better word, mildly overwhelming with opportunity. And at the end of the day, it's what I've worked my whole life for. To be able to sort of put myself in a position where I can help people out. And that's where we're at. So thank you.
Well, Brad, honestly, I'm honored to have you on. And I have to say that someone who is going through all of the steps that you have over the last 14 years and prior to create something, really test it, try it, go through blunders and failures of different situations, fail forward, as you told me, have new opportunities pop up. Like, you are grinding and pushing and really doing some incredible stuff. I have a million questions for you, and anyone who's listening to this, I'm going to ask Brad a quick question. You'll see why, but I'll say that after his answer, definitely go back and listen to the previous episodes, because he's done 2 other shows with me and talks a lot about his history. But Brad, if someone's listening to this episode, it's the first time they're hearing your voice, can you give me kind of the elevator pitch explanation of ISOPHIT in the last 14 years, the quick little snapshot, just so we can start the whole show with that?
Well, ISOPHIT, in a nutshell, is a big, huge, fancy wall that I was able to pull from a wall and put into the middle of a room. And it's really what it is. It's a motion restraint device that has the ability to restrain all human joint motion at every muscle length and every joint position. So, which is a very, very complex scenario to say, hey, push or pull it into this immovable object. So if you've never seen what the ISOPHIT is, go look at it. There's multiple versions now. There's a therapeutic version that we call the isometric strength trainer, which honestly is the epitome of awesomeness. I'm still blown away to date at the versatility of this product. I created it, but I'm a student of the game, so I'm super excited every time I see it. It's like, wow, it literally is a fancy wall in the middle of a room that does all this sort of stuff. And then we had our COVID baby, which was the ISOPHIT MSK, which many of you guys in the audience have. It's a portable unit. It's 39 pounds, provides 600 pounds of resistance for lots and lots and lots of exercise, or isometric based exercises. And then we got 3 more products in the pipeline. So we got the ISOPHIT 316, which is the ISOPHIT MSK design made out of steel. So it's 53 pounds. It provides 700 pounds worth of resistance. A little bit less portable, but still you can move it around a little bit. And then for the NFL, we got a purpose-built product. It's the ISOPHIT 454. It's a 95-pound version of the MSK. It withstands over 1,000 pounds of force for all these big, huge, massive, NFL linemen and offensive or defensive backs. And we're positioning that as a deadlift platform. So it's deadlift plus, right? So it does deadlifts and plus a whole bunch of other stuff. You'll be able to sort of figure out what that other stuff is by just taking building out an app for this specifically. Basically a QR code, so it can be on the gym floor, at a commercial fitness center or in a performance center, and you can sort of say, hey, it does deadlifts, because part of the issue we've learned over the years is we have to simplify our messaging. Telling somebody this machine does a million things actually paralyzes them, versus, hey, it does one thing, go on your journey and learn what it does, in excess. And then we got a product called the ISOPHIT Go, which is a 18-pound portable unit designed for the NBA. And so it basically satisfies portability and arm heights up to 9'6". So it's a steel webbing system with a whole bunch of different channels, so you can change lines of force. It's a webbing grommet system, so it's real simple. And you guys will be excited. It'll theoretically be priced at less than $300.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, there's nobody on the planet that should be able to say ISOPHIT's too expensive now. So I shouldn't have to listen to that comment anymore from people who haven't tried it before. But anyways, that's a shot at some people. But anyways, I'm tired. So I apologize now for some of the unique comments that may come out of my brain. But yeah, it's been pretty awesome, man. So that's ISOPHIT in a nutshell. We are significantly impacting this industry, changing lives, and now, to be honest, being recognized for it by some pretty awesome organization. So it's nice to be a part of it. It's pretty awesome.
I love it. And so, Brad, I mean, you're doing some incredible stuff, and I'm super excited just to see the steel version. I think the steel version, I hope you're keeping it steel, because if it's just all steel on steel on steel, it's just going to look mean.
Except for the platform still, that sort of, whatever the technical term is, let's call it plastic, for lack of a better word. But yeah, it's pretty remarkable. So we reinforced it a little bit as well. So it's kind of beefy, it's sexy. It's the first one we just delivered the other day to the Bristol Bears in the English Premiership, so their rugby program. So English rugby happens to be the world's elite rugby league, and the Bristol Bears happen to be one of the more recent champions and the highest valued team in basically the world of rugby. So we've been able to leverage that already. So they literally, my meeting with them was less than 15 minutes before they fell in love with ISOPHIT. And then from that, so they, 2 weeks went by, we basically took their feedback, reinforced the actual unit, so did a design change in 2 weeks, brought that, to them, and basically they were blown away. So they're basically their athletes are now introducing us to their national team programs that they play for. And it literally it takes minutes now. It's not even, because the sport performance world is all about isometrics. They're learning about it, and it's not to say that they aren't passionate about dynamic exercise. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is what they've started to see is by adding isometrics, you can enhance the result of your dynamic training by 14, 15, 30% within sessions. Not months, not weeks, not years, sessions. And it's in all the literature, which, you've heard me spout off for many years now. When you're looking at the activation rate of muscle tissue, it takes 2 workouts of isometrics to increase the activation rate of muscle tissue to 100%. So, so why are they doing it? Why are they calling? Well, because they're now learning that. And, so I don't have to talk as much anymore. So my voice is becoming lessened, which is, thank you. I'm so sick of speaking about it some days.
Well, to all of that, Mr. Gary Augustine Warren, which is one of the best names, says that is all super good to know. He's super excited to hear all that stuff. So here's my question for you. Kind of like, I mean, it was a million questions I've got, but how the heck
Absolutely.
did this avalanche of sports teen stuff start? Because you've been working at this for 14 years. Last time we talked, you were talking about making ISOPHIT a media company. I imagine that is no longer happening as much. And now you are dominating athletics. What happened?
I do social media a lot. So it's a combination of many factors, all of which was the 14 years preceding this year to be ready for this opportunity. So let's acknowledge what it was and what it is. It's a combination of reaching out to some key individuals and having athletes. We've had athletes since day one supporting us. One of our athletes that's used ISOPHIT is playing in the World Series tonight. He's one of the pitchers. I won't tell you which one. You figure that one out. So there's been a lot of people along the way that have supported. They've just never put their names to it publicly. So what transpired? It's kind of a little bit of a story. So AS Monaco basketball has an ISOPHIT. So 2 years ago, their team, to be honest, was less than optimal. It kind of sucked. They weren't really doing very much. And there's many factors when you look at why teams improve. So I'll look at it from my self-serving perspective. They bought an ISOPHIT. The champion of the French league, which was Lyon Asvel, they had an ISOPHIT. So we end up, AS Monaco hears about it. They get one. They go to the championship first year. Right? So they had a 23-game improvement. And you could look at that at player acquisition. You could look at it performance enhancement. You could look at it prevention of injury. But I'm just going to go with it. The people that we've seen purchase ISOPHITs have all improved across the board. Doesn't matter what sort of sector they're in. So we can look at that, and I can comfortably say that. So there's this big, huge YouTube social media basketball guy who goes and he works with one of the guys in AS Monaco, and he goes over to Monaco, and he sees this product, and he's like, "What is this?" So he gets blown away by it. So he calls me. I'm blown away. Like, I've never seen this before. I love isometrics. Can I do this? And he's got a basketball program. He's building it all out. He works with a ton of NBA guys. So he's got it. So he puts it on his social. As Mike Grevet is his name. And he's got a program called GBG, which is Good Be Great. And it's a great program. But he's dealing with all these NBA guys. So one of the strength coaches and a guy named Derek Millender for the Cleveland Cavaliers likes one of my comments. And I'm like, hold on. And you know how active I am on social and how responsive I am, because I literally have nothing to do outside of hope and pray people contact me. So he contacts me, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy is like the head strength coach, the world champion, Cleveland Cavaliers. Cool, this is amazing. So reach out to him and say, hey, I noticed that you liked a post. How can I help you? And he's like, well, I'm really interested in your product. I'm like, well, I can jump on the phone with you. Do you mind, like, if I give you a call? He's like, no, I'd love that. So I called Derek, and so we get on, and I'm like, well, you're in Cleveland. You say you're like leaving Cleveland. Like, this is a Sunday night. He's leaving Cleveland on Thursday. I got to go do some traveling and stuff like this. I'm like, I can come to Cleveland tomorrow. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'll get in the car. I'll drive down. I'll show you ISOPHIT. So I drive down to Cleveland, so it's not, we're in Toronto, so it's a 5-hour drive. It's nothing crazy. So I drive down, spend a couple hours with him, show him the ISOPHIT. He loves it, and we just get on great. He's an unbelievable, generous human being, kind, knowledgeable, and super passionate about human performance. So what's not to like about this sort of connection? So I end up spending, like, how do I phrase it? I stay in Cleveland that night. I don't spend the night with him, but I stay in, and so we meet the next morning and spend a couple more hours. He's got to go do his job and stuff like that, work with the players. But, and then he phones me like the next, probably actually I think it was that day, and he's like, this is amazing. This is like for him and his thought process is evolutionary. It's new. He instantly sees how it benefits all his players. So there's not that, hey, I got to try to sell. And, I don't really like selling. I'm certainly not a product pitch man. I'm passionate about human performance. I'm passionate about helping people, and I'm certainly passionate about isometrics. So then it's like, let's craft the experience. And that's what I'm addicted to, as you know. And it's like, okay, well, if I can craft an experience for this guy, and then he brings in a couple of his players, and they're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. So he orders one, it gets delivered. He starts using it on the more regular. And then he's like, Brad, I got an opportunity, and I was wanting to know if you could help me out with this. I'm like, sure, absolutely. Well, I've been asked to speak at the NBSCA, which is the NBA, Strength and Conditioning Association's annual symposium meeting, however you want to call it. And it's a global audience, and he wants to do it on isometrics. So I'm like, I can help you. I can, whatever you need from me, I am more than happy to jump through hoops to make it happen. So he's like, well, you know what? I just need your help sort of preparing it and the flow and how do we do it and do whatever. And so, so I sit down with Derek and we craft this unbelievable presentation. And this is like his first public presentation in a while. So the first, call it 90 seconds to 3 minutes, he's dropping the ball, he's stumbling. And then all of a sudden, the light goes off and the guy crushes this presentation. Now, I will tell you that the athlete that's being used in the photos of, really isometrics and ISOPHIT is a guy named Jarrett Allen. And Jarrett Allen's the Cleveland Cavaliers All-Star Center. So Jarrett loves ISOPHIT. Jarrett let Derek use his image presenting ISOPHIT in this presentation. So when you have an all-star center being showcased by a world champion strength and conditioning coach to a global audience about basketball, and Derek's, he's a leader. He's been with the Cavs for 13 years, world champion, worked with LeBron James, and you name it, who's gone through that program, but also respected. So that led to the Timberwolves, that led to the Houston Rockets, that led to the Philadelphia 76ers. I was always already kind of with the Pelicans, and then we're with the Cavs. So it's been, now we're in 20% of the NBA. So that's kind of where that was. And then with the other sports, I'm basically super active on social. So I reach out to everybody. Like there's not a person I don't reach out to. That I see if you're in a sport performance sort of scenario, I reach out. So how we landed the Bristol Bears, that was a LinkedIn reach out. Where it's like, I'm going to be in Bristol. We're set up manufacturing over in the UK to deal with some shipping into the European market, which became super egregious. So we did that. So had a buddy of mine who heads up Sportsmith, which is an organization that deals really with sport performance, and the scientific community is really heavily involved with that. So they have a program right now on isometrics, and it's a guy named Alex Nitrell out of Australia, who's a super smart guy. But one of their presenters in their program is a guy named Danny Lum, and Danny is an ISOPHIT owner as well. So Danny's out of Singapore. He works for Singapore Sport. He's their head trainer there, head sports science guy. I shouldn't just use the word trainer. He's a super, super brilliant guy. But he also has ISOPHIT in his presentation. So it's like we got sports performance coming from one side, sport performance coming from the other side. And none of this is, call it, paid on us at all. It literally is, here's a method of exercise that enhance sport performance and reduce injury. And, if you get it outside of the sport performance world, it can improve quality of life. End of story. Hard stop. What's the risk of injury? Virtually none. Who's it good for? Virtually everybody. Our force matching technology, it basically is, responds in real time, right? So you push harder, it responds with more. You push less, it responds with less. You push harder in fatigue. Well, now you can change it, really kind of train in a fatigue state under virtually no risk, which you cannot do with selectorized equipment. You cannot do with weights. You cannot do with bands. And you certainly can't do it just running around with body weight either. So here's a way that we can train mental toughness, physical toughness, strategically target tendon structure, which is all the rage in sport performance, And all of this is without, as we know, and as we've sort of discussed a little bit pre-show, without data monitoring and without anything. And we're living in an age of monitoring and data, and here's ISOPHIT now just blowing up. So it makes you kind of look at just the versatility and the awesomeness of what it is that, I'll use this, that I created and brought to the world. Fancy wall and the stick above a platform. So to bring it down to simple terms. So that's kind of that's sort of the where we are now, and it's ridiculous where we are, and it's overwhelming. And as I said earlier, it's just yes.
Well, I want to talk about the overwhelming thing in a second, but I think like from that little section there's a couple of things to take away, and then there's a question for you. But I mean, if you're a student and you're a part of this Fitness Pro community and you've been watching any of the social stuff I've put out there, the one thing I want people to hear is, you're getting clients from a few different ways, right? You're getting clients, one, from referrals, which is kind of like a common way that people grow business, one of the main ways. You are also actually outreaching to people. So people are seeing your content, they're engaging it, and you're actually reaching out and starting conversations, which we've been saying to trainers for years, and you're doing that for a totally different business, same kind of world. And then you were kind of directly and indirectly getting really cool expert status from all the collaborations where people who at very, very high levels are showcasing your stuff, building your authority before you even open your mouth and they see your stuff, and setting up the next conversation to happen even faster and easier. It's really, really kind of cool to see all of those dominoes that you're hitting, and you're also putting the actual effort into to make that change.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll give you a story. So Spire, which is sort of a performance institute in Geneva, Ohio, a gentleman by the name of Bobby Kalel, I'm sorry, heads up that program. So he happens to be Stipe Miocic, the former UFC heavyweight champion, trainer. So I show up and I meet Bobby, and we have a phone conversation saying, "Hey, I would really love to introduce you to ISOPHIT. I think it's going to be amazing for your athletes." And I'm looking at it from let's get in with sort of UFC, be it the world champion, former world champion, and I think everyone should see ISOPHIT. So he's like, "Yeah, I'd love it. I'm a real big fan of isometric, so this is perfect." Oh, by the way, I'm now heading up this sport program at Spire, and Spire is a U.S. Olympic training facility as well. And it's 750,000 square feet of indoor space. It is the most massive thing I've ever seen. It's the biggest, they've slated as the biggest training facility in the world. So I meet Bobby on a Friday, and he goes, "Brad," and this is like 3 minutes into meeting him. And he goes, "This is amazing. This is awesome. I'm going to ask you a question. I hope you don't mind." I'm like, "Go ahead." He's like, "I got a meeting on Tuesday. Do you mind if I take this unit with me?" I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "Yeah. So I work with the FBI. So we are now a supplier to the FBI." Thank you, Bobby. Because he brought an ISOPHIT MSK to the FBI, and well, needless to say, they enjoyed it and liked it, and he vouched for and facilitated that. So yeah, so
I have one question on that. I know you're going somewhere more with this, but on that FBI note, I'm just curious. Does the FBI actually contact you to buy this, or do they have like an in-between person? Like, hey, Brad, this is Johnny from the FBI. One ISOPHIT, please.
As of now, it is through Bobby. The U.S. Army was the other way. They do contact you. So they're a long-standing client. So you look at that, and it's surreal. It really is. But I do have a meeting coming up with them, in the coming months, to get down to Quantico, and like just cool stuff.
I don't mean to be to joke around, but when they call you, it's like, "Hey, this is Steve from the U.S. Army." Like, what do they say when they call you?
To be honest, I thought it was a joke. I literally, when they their outreach, I'm like, "This is bullshit." Like, the U.S. Army's calling me, like, and they went through the fill out the form and the subscription, or the what do you call that thing, the information form on the website. And so I called them, and I'm like, I really don't believe this. And they're like, "No, it's serious." I'm like, "Okay, thanks." And all kinds of red tape, regulations, securities, non-disclosure agreements I had to sign, all kinds of stuff with them. And thank you. Is I've lived a pretty interesting life. I'm not going to lie, since I created ISOPHIT. And
Yeah.
access is really what it is. It's having, and here's my advice to everybody: differentiate yourself, no matter what it is, whatever industry you are in. Differentiate yourself. The only reason people call me is I haven't had anyone call me for dynamic exercise. My designations. An MAT background, an RTSM background. Not a single person has called me to say, "Hey, I already got this roster filled with dynamic exercise people. Can you come into my organization and help?" Not one. Every person has called me because I do isometrics. So figure that out. I'm not saying don't do dynamic exercise. I'm saying position yourself that you only do isometrics, because there's not a lot of people in the space, and really important people. If you're an expert in the subject area, and I will go with I am, they will call you. I had a gentleman this morning. I got off the phone with him. He wants to work with ISOPHIT. He's like, "I want to work with you." He's got a World Series ring, the Atlanta Braves. And it's like, okay, cool. So I don't have a World Series ring with the Atlanta Braves. And he wants to work directly with me. So if I go to talk to a baseball organization and he's got a World Series ring on his hand, he's getting in the door. Brad Thorpe will ride his coattails in the door, but we'll be there because they're calling. I have a former NFL guy now pitching a Division I football program on my behalf. I've helped him with his presentation. Obviously, I mentioned Derek earlier. So I'm helping some of the world's elite people position themselves as experts in the subject area, right? And I'm not saying don't do dynamic exercise, but what I'm saying is add this component. But you've got to know this component. You have to understand the science, the nuance of what it is, because what people forget about is no matter when you move or how you move or what type of marketing term is associated with your movement pattern, it always starts with a ramping up of isometric force and tension, and then you move. So that's how I fit in. I'm the start of everything. I don't care if it's cricket, football, rugby, lacrosse, basketball, old age home, mobility care, work, rehab. I fit into all of it. And those are all the people that are calling. There's not one genre that I don't talk to almost every day. So it's pretty interesting, man. And it's the accumulation of all of it, where it's, thank you.
Here's maybe a practical question then. You can run through. I mean, I don't want to get you to give away any of your sales/experience secrets, but one thing that you've for sure had to do is you answer a call, you bring an ISOPHIT somewhere, and you do what I would call, and I think some people might see this negatively, but I wouldn't. I mean, just a dog and pony show of some sort where you get some ideas of their needs. You have them go through an experience on the system, the experience and the combination of what you explain gets them to go, "Oh my gosh, I'm in." I'm just kind of wondering to what end you'd feel comfortable sharing. Could you kind of talk through what that like initial sales to experience to, "Oh my gosh" moment is like, and how you do that?
I try to skip the need section 100%. I just go to, "Hey, try this." And if we happen to be at if I happen to have an ISOPHIT, I don't need an ISOPHIT. Remember that word, fancy wall? Most of my sales pitches are done without an actual unit. It's try this up against the wall. Oh my God, dictate the experience. And the interesting part is when you understand exactly where that client is going to, or that potential client is going to feel the contraction, you can wow them, you can blow their mind. But one of the things you prove instantly is how honest and how knowledgeable you are. And if you're honest and knowledgeable, and then it's like, man, do I like the person? Can I do business with this person? Do I trust this person? And that happens over time. The experience, if you can craft an experience within 15 seconds that they've never had before in their life, and we're talking industry professionals, we're talking sport doctors, sports therapists, S&C coaches for the world's elite athletes. It takes me 15 seconds, less than, to create an experience for them that they've never experienced before in their life. When I sold the Timberwolves, the meeting occurred in a hallway at NBA Summer League. It was less than 5 minutes. And the intro to that, so I got introduced to the Timberwolves by an ISOPHIT owner who happened to be the medical director for the Detroit Tigers. So it's kind of like, oh, I trust him. Yeah, this is awesome. Where'd you come up with this? This is amazing. I've been wanting something like this to make isometric exercise easy and applicable, right? Because if you use a wall, you're not selling anybody on using a wall. They're not going to come into your clinic because you have a wall or a door frame. They're going to do it at home for about 1 or 2 sessions, and then they're like, forget it. So really, how do I sort of craft that experience? I say, try this. And then I see the reaction, then I sell the reaction, because I can sit there and talk to you, because if you don't believe, right, every action stems from a belief. I need to change your belief first, because you think movement's important. Movement's not important. Contracting muscle's important. You know, and that's one of the biggest misnomers that we have in this industry, right? Because in an isometric, the muscle contracts 16%, right? So did the muscle move and the joint didn't? The answer is yes. So if I can get 16% contraction in muscle and repeat that without even moving and just by effort, well, I'm getting dynamic exercise. I'm getting blood flow into tissue. I'm getting sort of the perfusion of blood into the area, or I can sustain it, right? So it really comes back to how do we approach exercise. But I have to overcome, not so much anymore. I formerly had to overcome it's not good for blood pressure, or we're all about movement because we're athletes. Well, it's like, yeah, but this is a type of movement, and they're really worried about tendon stuff, like tendon stiffness now, so they're accustomed to long hold isometrics. So it's like, it's really sort of the conversation so easy. And then basically validation from outside sources that are trusted. So, so my sales cycle is literally down to, hey, yes, I can send it to this date. What it is. And the sad part, and this is the part that kills me, every team, every organization, they start with one. We need, if you want to sort of look, and this is not so much for the teams because, I mean, they're traveling, they're doing whatever, but as a business, buy 5, run a group class, get community buy-in, change the way you guys live your life in the sense that you're no longer working for a singular dollar per hour, because if you got 5 units and you're charging $30 a class, you're making $150 a half hour, right? Do 4 classes a day, which is 2 hours of time. You're at $600 for 2 hours. That's not bad money. Work 4 days a week or 5 days a week. Let's go with, right? So you're working 5 days a week, $600 a day. Well, it's now obviously $3,000, $150,000 a year, working 2 hours a day. Put a whole bunch of time into outreach. Make sure your classes are full. It's not hard. It just takes a little bit of effort, right? Hence the Fitness Pro Mentorship Program. This is what you need to do to make $150,000 a year, working 5 days a week, working 2 hours a day. 3 hours of outreach. 2 hours of outreach. You're now full. Add another class. Make some more money. Open another facility. Do whatever you need to do. And one of the things that I can guarantee you guys all, when you try ISOPHIT, when you position it well, when you sell the experience, dog and pony show it, there's not a better experience. One of the issue is when you move, it moves the location of the emphasis of the tissue you're trying to train. So you can't craft, it's very challenging to craft that dynamic.
So I got to, the math of that equation makes perfect sense, and I like it. But you even said to yourself, which I think is kind of interesting, is that when these sports teams buy it, they only buy one. And I'm just kind of wondering, what is do you have a game plan or thought to help push people, especially the people who can afford it, like the sports teams, to buy a package and get them on that group train?
So the interesting thing is when you start that will happen, right? It's a matter of getting their buy-in. Like buying in and buying in are different, right? Getting adopted into their programs is not the same as selling to them. Getting their ear is not the same as talking to them. So it's still a process. Like the Philadelphia 76ers, they're still waiting on their unit. It should be there later this week. That's Friday, early next week. So once they get it, now it's about sort of saying, okay, let's build this into their process. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they're up to 3. Timberwolves are up to 2, right? So it's test, try, purchase. Test, try, purchase is kind of how it's working thus far. The Bristol Bears, who got their units literally 2 days ago, they're looking at potentially 6. The Division I football program, they're trying 1, and then we'll go to, they said basically 20 or 30, because they got a roster of 65 kids. Right. So it really is about sort of building that trust, right? So the hardship that we're currently going through is like, optically it looks fantastic, and it is like our client list is the legendary in my eyes, but it really is at the end of the day getting that next step. Now, where we're able to sort of truly leverage that is with colleges, high schools, communities, right? And that's traditionally, if you sort of look at a funnel or like a pyramid, you got the NFL. Let's say it's the NFL at the top, then you got Division I, Division II, Division III college football. Then you got high schools, right? Hopes, dreams, and everything is made on high schools because there's over 4 million high school football players.
Right.
There's 450, whatever the math would be, 30 teams times 40 guys. So let's go 1,200 football players in the NFL, right? So to get to the NFL is unbelievable. And, thank you for calling and thank you for the opportunities. But I think at the end of the day, Texas football, be it high school Texas football, going to change my life.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So you just look at the scale of which you're able to build it for a high school or a college football program.
Well, how do you take what you've got and turn it into a reoccurring revenue model for the sports teams? Because like a one ISOPHIT thing is super cool, and it'll help you get more and more and more of them. But I mean, a lot of these places, even the cheapest, least successful franchises still have a lot of capital and could potentially benefit from something long-term and reoccurring. What do you think?
That's basically consulting fees. So I'm starting to get those from these teams, which is great for me.
Yeah.
But not great for, somebody else. And one of the issues and one of my pleas, it's an actual plea on your show. I need understudies, because anybody currently with an ISOPHIT, and I've had a bunch of people reach out to me over the last couple of weeks and sort of say, hey, can you get me into this team for this type of manual therapy?
Help me get in.
Help me get in. The answer is, and this is a hard fuck no. No, absolutely not. Ask that person who created that organization to call that team and get you in. That's his product, not mine. You want to present, if you want to represent ISOPHIT, represent ISOPHIT. We're doing great things. We're helping a lot of people. Be okay with standing behind a name that is different than a course you took. So I find it amusing. They mean well. Well, actually, it's been several people, and a couple other people have worked, and they sort of reach out for different design interests and how do we collaborate? And it's like, thank you, and I'm happy to talk to everybody, but just be mindful of what you're asking. Because it's taken me a long time, like literally 30 years to get into the pros. And what I'm learning quickly, just because you got your foot in the door doesn't mean it's open. They're guarded, they're challenged, and it's one of those beautiful things, and it's everyone comes at them. And it's like, hey, to get a hold of somebody, they may not return your call for 3 weeks, but it's like, hey, they're just busy.
Yep.
It literally is prioritize what is important, and if it's not important to this net, like literally right now, it will not be addressed. So when they call, I jump. When I call, they get back to me.
I don't even know how that would work. I think it'd be really funny because I mean, I had a couple sports team connections where I was doing some stuff for a while, and I'll be honest, I've stepped completely away from it to focus on the gym, and I'm very happy that I have. But when I was just thinking, like when I was there, I mean, I had some good people I could call, I could email, and there was some cool stuff going on. But I'm like thinking, okay, Brad calls me up. He's like, hey, can you introduce me to your guy? And it's like I got this guy that I know like 1% of who he actually is. We got a good relationship. But I'm like, hey, excuse me, Chris, really quickly. I know a guy. He does some things with the wall. You got to see it, right? Like I couldn't imagine for you how awkward that would be. So everyone, stop that. Don't do that to Brad.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, give me 10 years. You know, when I'm basically hanging on the couch with them, and even then, don't. Uh, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Oh, and actually, speaking of sitting on the couch, I was sitting at basically down at the Shangri-La in Toronto, waiting to sort of drop off the MSK for the Cavs strength coach, and one of my old clients walks by, and I'm like, Sanders, oh my God, I haven't seen you in like 20 years, like literally, like so having name recognition and being able to pull it like out of thin air, hugely valuable. So he's got one of the so he's in the music industry. So I got a meeting with him when I get back from the UK. So he's got one of the top artists in the world as a client. He's got an up and coming artist that we're going to start with and see if we can't get basically ISOPHIT on her tour. And she's about to blow up. And so it's like, okay, cool. And so his other artist, everyone in the world knows who he is. We'll just say they're from Toronto. We won't tell you who. You know, so you start with the person down here, and it's like, awesome, thank you for the opportunity. It's like, hey, I can't. What we were just talking about, I'm their manager, and I can't. You know, without a significant dollar number attached to the backside of it. So it's like, okay, well, just put yourself in a position to, you know, potentially have them ask, have them call you. You know, and that's one thing I'm really good at. Like on on Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm at basically Canada's largest tech event. And you go, well, why would Brad be at a tech event? Well, because they have 120 venture capitalists at this tech event. And once again, it's like, if I'm going to blow this up, I need tech money. I don't need fitness money. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, okay, well, where does ISOPHIT fit into tech? It's like, well, everywhere actually. You know, who doesn't want to have better health, whether it's blood pressure, potentially older age people with osteoporosis issues. You know, I own the hardware. I just need that tech partner to build a platform to go, oh, yeah, like a Peloton thing. No, not that. A hospital-based thing. A thing that actually truly works for building better function instead of causing knee pain, hip pain, and back pain. But anyways.
Isoton. No, on that note, okay, so I mean, you have no doubtably done some incredible stuff, and it's exemplified with the pieces of content you're sharing. And I'm sure there's stuff that you're not sharing of even cooler things that might have higher level of secrecy. I'm sure you got some cool stuff on the go. But my question for you, and it may be like kind of like a slowly closing question, is kind of something you preluded to with me off air, was just how overwhelmed you are and how many things are in the air, how many balls you're juggling, how many opportunities are popping up, but you're trying to fulfill and take care of yourself. And, you know, you're a bit run down. My question really is, as things continue to grow, and you talked about the understudy thing, but I'm wondering a few other things. How do you manage yourself and the company growth going forward? Like, how do you reduce some of the stressors so you're not taking? How do you automate things? How do you delegate this piece so that way, you know, you're doing more CEO meet and greet stuff, but you're not doing so many things in between, so you're burning yourself out?
I get about 4 people I'm currently interviewing to take hopefully a chunk of responsibility away from me. You know, I'm good at certain things and I'm really bad at other things. You know, as with anything, you know, my biggest disappointment, I guess, would be the best word in how I've run ISOPHIT over the years, is I'm always chasing the next client. You know, and some of my existing clients get left behind, and it's, you know, but on the flip side, it's like without that sort of reoccurring revenue model, you have to. You know, so getting a customer service rep in there to do outreach to existing clients, is paramount, to the creation of a community. Like ISOPHIT has no community. It formerly had no community. We're now starting to get it. We're now starting to see this new crop of, ISOPHIT owners reaching out to other ISOPHIT owners and communicating, and so it is great. Then there was certain, there was issues before with certain individuals who put a stamp on community development, but that's I can't hang my hat off that anymore. It's like, okay, well, how do we get this better? So how do we manage growth? We need to hire people. And one of the reasons I'm going to this sort of tech thing on the week, Monday and Tuesday, my goal is to walk in there and land potentially a big, huge deal with some sort of individual who either cares about resolving hypertension, strokes, or whatever it happens to be, or they want to be in the sport world. I do both. So realistically, to position us with what I've been able to do since 2015, when we sort of shipped our first ISOPHIT, really kind of the end of 2014. I mean, we're in 28 countries, 343 locations. I got some of the most awesome clients in the world that you would ever dream of. And I've done this basically all from my couch myself with supportive people, great manufacturer, great distributors. Well, not really distributors, but, I won't say they were great, but I had one for a while. But you look at stuff like that, and it's like, it's with the right team in place. We're a $1 billion company helping hundreds of millions of people, and that's my goal. And it's, yeah, I'm beyond exhausted, and I'm basically heading into a month of travel with no rest. So it's, how do I end up on the other side of this? Hopefully well, not sick, but as I said, we got really cool products in the works, and one's going with me, so I'll be able to exercise. And it's only 18 pounds, so it doesn't, it's not too heavy, and and it's, without stumbling with more words, it's it's the most exciting time of my life. I just wish I wasn't so tired and I could actually sit back and enjoy it. But when you, as I said, I had like basically 7 pro teams of various sports contact me since last Wednesday. In different sort of colleges and everything else. There's 2 educational companies that are huge, global educational companies that have reached out to me as well. And every new opportunity you look at, you examine, is it the right one? Right now, they all happen to be the right ones because it's about further growth and further development, further acceptance. And I just really need people to sort of step up and say, hey, Brad, I want to be a part of this. I spent a lot of money on an expensive piece of machinery. And, whether they're struggling, whether they're succeeding, whether they're doing whatever, here's an opportunity to just run with it. But you have to commit, right? You can't be 2 feet out or 1 foot in. You got to jump in. The water's warm, and everyone's in this industry to help people. So it's like, okay, well, here we have an opportunity to help millions of people. Actually, billions if you look at blood pressure. Like there's 1.07 billion people. The stat is with hypertension.
That's
and
insane.
yeah, and it's like, okay, well, I'll knock the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada for a second. They don't even mention the word isometric on their website, but yet it's been proven. And there's analysis, scientific studies stating that it's far superior than cardiovascular training or resistance training or even high intensity interval training for lowering blood pressure in hypertensive populations. Okay, cool. Why isn't every single one of our trainers in this audience screaming that, right? Over 50% of Americans have hypertension. Gary mentioned earlier, Gary listened. Gary no longer has hypertension. Gary, I think, went to the hospital because he was taking hypertensive medication when he wasn't supposed to. Why wasn't he supposed to? Because of ISOPHIT. Good job, Gary. He almost died on us, because his doctor didn't believe it. Hope you don't mind me telling that story, Gary. But you look at that, and it's like, okay, well, and it didn't take much time. There was literally months of using ISOPHIT where this guy all of a sudden is no longer needing and requiring medication. I got several stories of that. Not going to the hospital near death, but getting taken off blood pressure medication. And that includes several of my doctor clients. so we need to stand there, and we need to be okay with not being disruptive. We need to nudge the industry in a new direction, right? The industry is pretty cool. We just got a lot of misinformation. We're promoting a lot of stuff that's not optimal, you know. And it comes back to, you know, I don't have to scream anymore. I don't have to be the guy that's like just yelling shit to get noticed. You know, so for the people that I've offended at numerous times over the last several years, I'm sorry. But you bought my product because of what I said. You got turned on by what I said. Now, what I need you guys to do is turn back on and start actually promoting isometrics, right? Because you're not doing that, and you're doing the world a disservice. You know, it can't be the Brad show. It really can't. Do I benefit from it? Yeah, I do. Thanks. So do we all. So do our parents. You know, and as I mentioned to you before in previous stories, the only reason I'm in this industry is because my mom's dad died of a heart attack. No child should lose a parent due to hypertension, whether it's stroke or heart attack. No child. It's preventable. Until, of course, you get really, 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 really old, but no 15-year-old kid anyways. So we have that ability. We can change that. So anyways, dude, it's always a pleasure.
Brad, I appreciate all of your time and wisdom, and, you know, just closing out this show. Thank you so much for all your hard work. It's incredible to see you reaping the benefits of all of your work, the success. It's incredible. Seeing ISOPHIT sideline at a Raptors game, pretty badass. You should be proud. It's a lot of work.
That was the first time in 14 years I was. So, but anyways, we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Everyone, if you are listening, definitely check out isophit.com. Check out Brad Thorpe, Mr. Isometric himself. Check out the ISOPHIT MSK. We've got one at the gym here. We don't have the larger one, only because we don't have the space right now, but that'll change. And the ISOPHIT MSK takes up a small amount of space, and it's game-changing. I mean, honestly, I love it.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
All right, Brad, we'll talk to you soon, man. Go break some eggs.